Students, families, counselors, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever it is in the world you are joining us. Thank you so much for joining StriveScan's virtual college exploration program. This program is in partnership with the colleges that change lives, and this is a few housekeeping items before we begin with Earlham College. First and foremost, you are encouraged to ask questions throughout the session via the Q&A button that you see on your screen. When you send a question in, it gets sent to our panelist, and he'll work to answer the question at the end of the session today. As a reminder, your camera and your microphone are turned off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. So if you do have questions, make sure to type them in through that Q&A button. This is one of 50 individual information sessions and panel presentations that are being run by the colleges that change lives. We encourage you to check out all of these sessions at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL. There is a general CTCL in the liberal arts program happening at 4 o'clock today that we encourage you to check out. There's also a session about writing your personal statement at 6 o'clock that we encourage you to check out as well. When you sign up for this program, you received your barcode. You do not need that barcode for this virtual event. And we are recording this session, and it'll be at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alex.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is all of you are joining me from. Welcome to the Earlham College CTCL session. As Zach mentioned, my name is Alex Painter. So I actually work in the admission office at Earlham. I actually have, excuse me, since 2013, pardon me. So I've worked in the admission office since 2013, but before that I was actually an Earlham student. I graduated in the spring of 2010. So I am an Earlham alum, as well as I guess a fairly long tenured Earlham administrative faculty as well. So super happy that you all have joined the Earlham session. So I'll be the only one presenting today. So I guess what that means as far as asking and answering of questions, I'm going to run through the presentation. Hopefully you get a very, very good sense of Earlham and hopefully some of the things that make us distinct and unique. And then after the presentation has run its course, I will be sure to jump in then and answer all of the questions. So please feel free to put the questions in the Q&A box. And so my goal for today is that you get a really, really good sense of, as I mentioned, the things that make Earlham fairly unique and fairly distinctive, but also hopefully you get a sense of just how individualized we strive to make each one of our students' experiences while they're a student at Earlham. Earlham is very student-centered, and we try to make that so by combining both your on and off-campus learning both as robust and seamlessly sewn together as possible. And we do that in a very distinctive learning environment, which I'm excited to tell you about. Okay, so I am going to share my screen here in just a moment. Share. Okay, let me hit present here. All right, awesome. So here we go, about Earlham College. Now, Earlham College at this time is right about 900 students. And I think what makes our students noteworthy, as we kind of see some scenes from Earlham College, is where they join us from. We have nearly all 50 states and right about 55 countries represented. So 85% of our students actually come from outside the state of Indiana. So we'll talk about where we're located in Indiana, but we are located in Richmond, Indiana. And as we know, diversity comes in much greater forms and more forms than just geographical proximity to campus. So just to kind of expound, nearly 23% of our students are international students. About a quarter of our students are first-generation college students. And in our first-year class this year, nearly 40% of our students are students of color. So we do try to create as diverse and as eclectic of a learning environment as we can with the backdrop of our mission statement. And we'll talk about what that means here in just a moment. So the mission of Earlham College is to provide the highest quality undergraduate education in the liberal arts, including the sciences, shaped by the distinctive perspectives of the Religious Society of Friends. Now, the Religious Society of Friends, that is another name for the Quakers. And it's the Quakers who actually founded our college in 1847. So we are in our 173rd year now. You don't have to be Quaker to attend Earlham. If we were a Quaker-only school, we would actually be much smaller than what our student enrollment is right now, because I think there's less than 100,000 Quakers across the entire United States. So just to put a bow on that, only about 8% of our students are Quakers. However, our students do like, and our whole community actually is keenly aware of these principles and practices that kind of sew us together. So it's the idea of respect for persons, integrity, peace and justice, simplicity, and community. So, and hopefully, well, we will discuss kind of the ways that those values manifest themselves throughout the presentation. But however, we are very intentional about putting our principles and practices as early on in these presentations as we can, because they are incredibly important to Earlham, even 173 years after the fact. So just some more fun facts about Earlham. As I mentioned, we were founded in 1847, and behind Oberlin College, we were the second coeducational college in the United States. And we actually started as a Quaker-only boarding school, but soon, by the end of the American Civil War, we started admitting non-Quakers at that time. So the academic life, kind of a big part of the college experience, so to speak. So we actually have more than 40 majors and minors, and I'll talk about the academic divisions here in a moment, but we do have some new programs. Included in our new programs include social services. So for a lot of those students who are interested in careers in social work, also exercise science, equestrian management, because we have the only student-run equestrian co-op in the entire country on a college campus, as well as data science and quality science. So those are some of our new programs, but we are based in the 4 major academic areas. So the natural sciences, so of course your biology and chemistry, biochem, engineering, math, physics, astronomy. When it comes to the natural sciences, Earlham College truly thrives. In fact, we are 9th in the country as far as the percentage of our graduates who go on to receive Ph.D.s in the natural sciences. In addition to that, we place about 87% in med school, and we are the smallest college in the country that has a full-time cadaver lab. So I've been around Earlham for a long time. That is the only place, I think, that I have never actually seen with my own 2 eyes, and I hate to say it like this, but that's a decision I've made. So we also have the social sciences. So a place where I spent a lot of my time as a student. I studied history and politics at Earlham, but included we also have business, finance, marketing, sociology, psychology, anthropology, among many others. We also have the humanities, so the study of foreign languages, including French and Francophone studies, Spanish and Hispanic studies. We have German, Japanese, Chinese, Latin, among many others, but also English, philosophy, and religion, ancient and classical studies as well. And then finally, the arts. So art, theater, and music. And being a good liberal arts college, we have a bevy of interdisciplinary programs as well, as you might expect. So that includes peace and global studies, women, gender and sexuality studies, African and African American studies, international studies. So tons of interdisciplinary programs that are really exciting to choose from. Now for our students, and speaking of choosing, our students don't actually have to declare a major until they are a sophomore. We do that very intentionally. We pair up each student with a first-year advisor, and that advisor will remain your advisor until your 4th semester, when you actually choose an advisor within your major fields of interest. And so we try to offset students, changing their major, or students who come to campus and really aren't sure what they want to study, or they want to study A, B, and C, and they end up studying X, Y, or Z. So we try to build in some time in the academic career to accommodate for those students who maybe, like I said, come to campus and want to study something and decide it's something completely different, or for some students who have no idea or 10 academic interests. Now, when it comes to the classroom experience, this is a pillar of the Earlham College experience. So our average class size is 13. We have a student to faculty ratio of 9:1. And part of our ethos of community and actually simplicity as well, we don't use titles at Earlham. This is actually a staple of the Quaker learning environment. So 97% of our faculty have the terminal degree in their field, so most commonly doctorates. However, we just use first names. That is the Earlham, that is just kind of the way we have always operated. And the Quakers believe that if you are more comfortable in your learning space, then you're going to be more engaged. And if you're more engaged, you're going to learn more. And if you learn more, hopefully when you're finished with your schooling, you're ready to make a very impactful change in your community and the world. So Earlham is very collaborative, almost 90% of our faculty members do collaborative research directly with students. And our faculty routinely rank in the top 25 in excellence in teaching at the undergraduate level. And so you put all that together, and Earlham College this past year was actually ranked as having the 7th best classroom experience by the Princeton Review. And that is a mark that we are incredibly, incredibly honored to have, but it's also incredibly affirming to what I experienced as a student at Earlham and what our students continue to expect today and till the end of time, hopefully. So again, there's about 4,000 colleges and universities-ish, give or take, in the United States. So to come in the top 10 and actually such a meaningful metric is very, very important to us. So, pardon me, I'm gonna take a quick draw of coffee here. So for our students who just need a little bit of extra support, we have our Academic Enrichment Center, which is in Lilly Library, which is the main library on campus. So we have the Quantitative Reasoning Center. So that is for our students who just need some additional support in math or math-based classes. In addition, we have the Writing Center. So Earlham, as you might guess, it's a liberal arts education, which they tend to skew a little bit more reading and writing intensive. So I'll even say myself, for students like myself who came to Earlham and maybe needed a little bit of extra help with their writing, you can get individualized one-on-one appointments at either of the 2 aforementioned centers. Or if you need things like peer tutoring, or if you just need any additional resources to help you thrive in the classroom, that is what the Academic Enrichment Center is here for. And like I said, it's completely confidential if you so choose, and completely one-on-one and individualized. Again, trying to help our students thrive and succeed is of the utmost importance to us. So academic life, obviously very important. However, one of the bits of feedback that we were receiving is that our students were otherwise unable to get internships over the summer or land research positions over the summer. And so we heard that. And well, I heard it, of course, but a group of very philanthropic alums also heard it. And so a group of alums actually ended up donating $8 million to Earlham to fund and endow what we call our EPIC advantage. So EPIC, like everything else in higher ed, it's either everything's a buzzword or it's an acronym. EPIC is both, so it's EPIC, but it's also Earlham's program for an integrated curriculum. So again, fusing your on and off campus learning as seamlessly as possible together. So what does this mean for our students today? Well, every student, regardless of what he, she, or they want to major in, regardless of what he, she, or they want to do after they graduate, will receive $5,000 funding directly from the school to do an internship, to do a research experience over the summer, or also, what we're seeing a rise of is students self-designing their own project to be something that is very specific to their passions or very specific to their interests. So this is actually a short video. Sorry, I talk over the video because I want to make sure that I have enough time to share all of this. But so this is what some of our students were able to do actually during the second summer of what we call, again, our EPIC advantage. And so as you can see, we have a student who's working at an environmental center, a student who is interested in finance. So he got an internship in Indianapolis at Huntington Bank. Eleanor here actually got an internship working with a refugee advocacy group in Cincinnati. So the idea is that our students are really able to, after they kind of figure out what it is that they'd like to study, they really are able to drill down and get some really meaningful and impactful experience. And of course, it's important. That is something that employers, not to sound super callous or transactional, but let's be honest, that's something that a lot of employers do like to see. Students with, obviously an education, but also some field experience or internships or whatever have you. So our students are able to, for instance, the Cope Environmental Center, as we saw earlier in the video, that's actually about 2 miles from campus. Or you could go to Iceland and study glaciers and volcanoes, as Andrew did. So really, and then everything in between. But the idea is that every single student will receive $5,000 to go do whatever it is that they are passionate about. Okay, just one second. Let me keep the train moving here. Keep going. And it does bear repeating, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna repeat it. The EPIC Advantage provides at least one funded internship, student faculty research experience, or project to every student. So the students that you saw, for the most part, did theirs solo or by themselves. We've also had students go in teams. So for instance, here's some public health students in Costa Rica. So, but yes, again, EPIC is still, the EPIC Advantage is still very uncommon in the landscape of higher education, that the fact that it is funded. And every single student has access, of course, to their academic advisor. You would fully expect that. But also you can cross-reference that advising with a career coach out of our EPIC centers. And again, you can kind of cross-reference those advising points to best help figure out what it is that, how you're going to dovetail your on-campus learning with your off-campus. So that is what the EPIC Advantage is. So again, when you're on campus, you're going to be participating in a very meaningful, transformative, dynamic classroom experience, but we do continually, routinely push our students to go learn and experience off campus as well, because that's where literally the other half of learning does truly take place. So here is actually just a very small sampling of where our students were able to go in the summer of 2019. So for instance, we had some students who were interested in marine biology. So they went to the Bahamas to study sea turtles and iguanas. I've also heard that the Bahamas is lovely pretty much any time of the year. But as you can see, we do travel fairly extensively. And this is, again, just during the summer. So that is, of course, a sticking point, because students are able to travel during the school year too, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Which, yes, is off-campus study. So 2/3 of Earlham students actually participate in a semester or a year-long off-campus study program. So our programs are routinely ranked among the top study abroad programs across the entire country. It is something that Earlham does, in my humble opinion, exceedingly well. And so let me just show you a sampling of these are some of our fall semester programs. Now you have some very cool and unique programs here. So for instance, our SICE program, which is for our students who are interested in studying Japanese, either language or linguistics or Japanese studies. This is actually a formal exchange program. So we have an articulation agreement with Waseda University in Tokyo. So we will send students their way, they'll send students our way, and that's something that Earlham's actually been doing for decades at this point. We have a Tibetan studies program as well, which take our students to India. And we actually are currently hosting, well, we were hosting in the spring, actually, I should probably say. We were hosting them in the spring, and naturally they had to kind of stay in the area due to various travel restrictions. But we actually have some Tibetan monks on campus as well. So they're amazing. They are absolutely, absolutely amazing and very popular in the dining hall, I will say. So what's unique about these programs is that these are self-standing Earlham programs. So you're going to go on these programs and you are going to go with a small Earlham cohort, including Earlham faculty. Your financial aid award from Earlham will actually follow you from place to place. And you will return to campus with 18 Earlham credit hours. So this is an important distinction, just because oftentimes they're based on kind of how the programs are set up. It might be a collaborative or cooperative program. Sometimes students aren't able to return to campus with a full slate of credit hours. And so I just always bring that up just as a point. These are Earlham programs. And so you are able to stay on pace for your academic career. Not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing. I had a colleague once who went to, did the semester at sea at Catholic University over in Washington, D.C., and he said he came back, I think, with about half of the credits he needed, but he still said, I would never change it for the world. He got to visit X amount of countries. It was a wonderful experience. And again, it's the whole idea of the experiential learning aspect. So we say abroad, but however, as you can see, some of these aren't. We do have domestic programs. We have a border studies program in Tucson, Arizona. So we've been doing this program, I believe, for about a decade and a half. It feels more and more relevant every single year. So it's very, very popular. We have also a Penland Crafts program. This is actually based in North Carolina. So we also, of course, have spring semester travel programs. So I'd say a couple of our most popular programs are found here. New Zealand is incredibly popular. And if you see the pictures, it's fairly obvious as to why that is. It's beautiful there. We also have a really strong London program and Greece program. So for students who are interested in a lot of the humanities and social science, students will go to London, and folks who are interested in history, a lot will go to Greece. And South Africa is also a very popular one. So this is just a small sampling. Our students travel to every continent, including Antarctica, because we did send a contingency of students to Antarctica here very recently. But we do partner up with other schools. So if students are really interested in going to whatever location they so choose, you can absolutely do that. You can absolutely do that. And pardon me. And we will help you. We actually have a designated office on campus called the Center for Global Education, who will help kind of guide you and direct you to whichever corner of the globe you'd like to traverse to. Yeah, although yes, I know the globe doesn't have corners, but wherever it is that you'd like to go. As I mentioned, the advising is always individualized. Okay. Now, for clubs and student life, thematically here, we're in the student life bubble. Pardon me, I normally make that announcement as I dive into each of one of these little bubbles. So all told, 94% of our students actually live on campus. So we try to ensure that we have things for them to do, of course, but we also, like most small colleges and, the residential college, a staple of it is campus life, campus involvement, a thriving student life scene. And so we try to be very intentional about plugging students in to students who have similar interests. And so a big part of that is our student-led organizations. So, pardon me, our organizations kind of run the gamut, so to speak, as far as what they are thematically. So we have service clubs, we have cultural clubs, we have political clubs, we have religious rec sports special interest clubs. Sorry, I realize I'm reading at this point, but ultimately, Earlham is a campus that tries to, again, be very intentional about finding students, connecting them with students of like interest. So if you go through our roster of clubs and organizations and you don't necessarily see one that fits you, or you have an idea for a new one, you can actually very, very easily start a new program or a new club. In fact, it's exceedingly simple to do so, and it's actually really easy to actually apply for funding. And again, Earlham is just very, very open. It's very accepting. If you're familiar with Earlham, you might even be familiar with that aspect of Earlham. Just that's kind of the Quaker, part of the Quaker ethos of equality. But ultimately, we want students to be able to come in and know that regardless of what their interests are, with anything, that they're going to be accepted. So, and speaking of that, sports first, pardon me. We have 19 NCAA Division III sports. So, pardon me, I'm just moving my screen here. So we compete in the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference, except for field hockey, which competes in the North Coast Athletic Conference. But we do have schools that we compete mostly in Indiana, Ohio, and Transylvania down in Lexington. So that is the conference which we compete in, pardon me. And we have about 35% of our students are student athletes. So it is a pretty large part of our campus community, our student athletes. And I was a student athlete myself at Earlham. And one of the things that I would always say as a student athlete is, particularly at the Division III level, I actually have a couple siblings who play Division I sports, and it feels much more like a job there. Whereas at this level, students are truly able to get both the full experience as both a student and an athlete. And I don't think there's anything, again, this is just from my personal vantage point, anything more rewarding than being able to experience that. So our student body and campus community typically comes out and supports all of the athletics teams in droves. Okay. Sorry, now I'm like moving my face around here trying to find the best spot. Now, residence life. As I mentioned, nearly 94% of our students live on campus. So it's really important that we have comfortable accommodations for them. So we have 8 residence halls and a variety of accommodations for them too, I should add. So of our 8 residence halls, 2 of them are first-year residence halls. So we want to make sure that we're connecting our first-year students and building community from literal day one. So most students, I probably should change this. Most students will live on campus all 4 years. So in addition to the residence halls, we also have themed and friendship houses. So it is of note that we don't have fraternities or sororities at Earlham College. Our houses do have themes to them, albeit just not Greek themes. And so kind of like our student clubs, there are political themes, there's cultural themes, there's academic themes, there's special interest themes to our houses. So all told, as I mentioned, we have about 20 houses on campus. So I think about 12 of them are currently active. We actually, as you might guess, this semester we have quite a few online learners, which I'll talk about Earlham's COVID plan here at the very end. I know it's really exciting stuff, but so not all of our houses are open as a result currently, but all of our houses do carry themes. Some of the themes have been as such for decades, and then others, as I mentioned, are a little bit more fluid. It kind of changes from year to year based on what the students want the theme to be. In addition to that, we also have an apartment complex on campus. So called Campus Village, but we affectionately call it Brick City. And so again, those are the 3 main avenues at campus. We do have a small amount of students who do get off-campus housing exemptions, but as I mentioned, 94% of our students live on. Okie dokie. So Earlham is located in Richmond. So some of you might, where is Richmond? Well, where this conveniently placed blue dot is. So as you can see, we are very close to the Ohio border. Actually, I live here I'm broadcasting live from the east side of Richmond. So if I hit all 12 traffic lights, I could be in Ohio in about 4 minutes. But we sit on 800 acres, so 200 of which are kind of Earlham proper, and 600 are actually, it's just a giant forest with trails and streams. It's a field lab for our environmental sustainability and environmental science programs, as well as biology program. So that is a huge part. There's an equestrian trail, there's a cross-country trail back there. So and it's just kind of a giant recreational space for our students. We actually volunteer about 20,000 hours in the local community. So Quakers are one to believe in service, and that's kind of the type of student we tend to attract, as a student who's interested in service. So as I mentioned, with a student body our size, I'd like to think 20,000 hours annually on average is an astoundingly high number. But we have about 36,000 people in Richmond. So depending on where you're coming from, Richmond could be much smaller than where you are from, or it could be, for a lot of our students, the largest place they have ever lived. Me personally, I'm a Fort Wayne native, so Richmond was about 1/10 of the size of the city I came from. But what I really enjoyed about Richmond then, what I still do to this day, is the fact that it's large enough that there's some really neat cultural spots. Richmond's the birthplace of recorded jazz music, for instance. So almost any early jazz great you can think of came to Richmond to record at Jeanette Records. But so you have those, those cool cultural spots, those staples, but it's also small enough that it is very accessible to our students, and our students can make an immediate impact. I'll use my wife as an example. So she's an Earlham graduate, class of 2011. And so she began volunteering with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Wayne County. And she was hired pretty much day one after graduating. And she has kind of risen through the ranks. And she is actually the first woman who is serving in the Director of Operations role in organization history. And I'd be remiss not to mention that the organization has been around since 1957. So immensely proud of her, as you can probably pick up on. But just a wonderful example, just how volunteering a few hours of your time during school can really just be so impactful. Okay, so anyways, if you draw a 4-hour circle around Richmond, you are within 4 hours driving range of 10 major metropolitan areas. Closest being Dayton, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes away. Indianapolis, which is only about 1 hour and 5 minutes away. And Cincinnati, Ohio is only about an hour and a half away. So our students routinely, if they want to get a little bit of big city, they go there. Okay. So I will go through this as quick as I can. We try to mirror this, make it as simple as we can. So we try to mirror it to as many other colleges and universities as possible. So our admissions process, what do we require? I know this is the most riveting part of the presentation, but we require an application, yes. So we utilize Common App, as does I think 650 other schools. So that's nice. It's free to apply to Earlham. And we also have our own application platform, inventively called the Earlham College application. I want to call it Quaker app, but that's okay. So within the Common Application, students will put their extracurricular activities, their co-curricular activities, whatever they're passionate about, their life outside the classroom, and also a personal essay as well. I always tell students that personal essay has a bit of duality to it. So A, you definitely want to show off your proficiency as a writer, but B, tell the admission committee or your admission counselor something really cool or interesting or profound or pivotal or funny that happened to you or about you. Because ultimately, Earlham College, we employ a very holistic approach to admission. So we are going to read everything you send us. So we require one teacher rec, but one time a student sent me 7, and I read all those. 7's still my personal record. So if you send me 8, you are the new record holder. One of those 7 was from Academy Award-winning actress Glenn Close. I feel like I should throw that in. But anywho, we do require a high school transcript, and we will accept either the SAT, the ACT. If you take them multiple times, we'll super score. If you take both, we'll look at the concordance table. We'll take whatever one's higher. But it is of note that we actually are test score optional. And this is, I believe, our 12th year being test score, 10th year being test score optional, pardon me. So this is something that we are very well trained to do, finding good academic, social fits for Earlham, and test score isn't necessarily something that we need for that. We take the approach that your test score can only help you, not hurt you. Okay, so we also require, as I mentioned, I was like, let me find my place here, pardon me. One letter of recommendation from a teacher and one from your high school counselor, which comes by way of the secondary school report. So if you don't know your counselor, if you're like me and you're like, I have no idea who my counselor is, just put your counselor's email in. The biggest thing they send us is just kind of a school profile of sorts. If they can write a review, a recommendation for you, we'll see those as well. Okay. For our international students, and I know we have separate CTCL international sessions, but I'll just cover this quickly. We do require a TOEFL or an IELTS, which are English proficiency exams, as well as an SAT, or an SAT, pardon me, as well as an ISFA, which is the International Student Financial Aid Application. So think just FAFSA for international students. We of course have to include this in our presentation because, as I mentioned earlier, a quarter of our students are in fact international. Financial aid. So when you're actually applying for when you're applying for admission, you're simultaneously applying for merit-based scholarships. 100% of our students are admitted with scholarship, and our scholarships start at $13,000 and go all the way to full tuition. So I guess at this point, we kind of talk about financial aid very broadly because everyone's academic as well as family's financial situation it kind of varies, but we do encourage all students to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and share that information with us because then at that point we can issue need-based grants from the school. So that is nice because of course scholarships, grants, you don't have to pay back. Loans are a little bit different story, but that is something we try. Okay, so we do maintain, I apologize, I did not update our I did not update our deadlines here. I apologize, but we do have an early action deadline of December 1st, and we have a regular decision deadline of March 1st. So most of our students will apply before the December 1st deadline, or December 1st anyway. So we do try to capture those students' information. And then at that point, you are given priority consideration for our scholarship day, which is in February of the student's senior year. So in this case, February of 2021. So that is, we do, as I mentioned, our December 1st is our first deadline, and it's our early action deadline. Okay, so let me stop my share real quick. Perfect. I know that was like very, very quick, but I want to talk a little bit about outcomes. So within 6 months of graduating, 92.6, very exact, 92.6% of Earlham students will have be either working in their career or have a job or in grad school. 50% of students who graduate from Earlham will actually go to grad school or go pursue a grad program within 10 years of graduating. But for us, it's 92.6. Some of our more kind of awesome alums of late, we actually have 2 students in the last 5 years who have been named Rhodes Scholars, including Sumaya Tora last year, who was the first Afghan, period, to be named to the prestigious scholarship. So definitely the first Afghan woman, but Afghan, period, to be named a Rhodes Scholar. And she studied peace and global studies at Earlham. So, so that is something that is really cool. So I'm going to go about and start answering questions here. So, pardon me, Kenjiro asked how tough it is to be a student athlete. So I will answer that. Again, college in general is just kind of a test of your time management. And so being a student athlete is kind of in the same vein. Ultimately, regardless of what athletic program you're in, the coach is going to want to, of course, make sure that you are eligible to continue to compete. So all of our programs actually have mandated study tables for all of our first-year students. So all first-year student athletes will find themselves in study tables with their program. But as I mentioned, what's nice is that our conference isn't so spread out, and so there's not a ton of travel that's really strenuous. When I was at Earlham, the travel was a bit different because we were in a different conference. So we had like 4 overnights one year. And so very rarely do any of our programs anymore have any overnights. They're all pretty much day trips, and they're all kind of within probably a 3-hour radius. So it's tough to be a student athlete. I mean, it's tough to be a college student. It's a drastic departure from your high school career. But however, all very manageable if you just kind of stay on top of it. Okay, so Lori asks, that great that alumni contributed money towards supporting the student experiential learning. Did alumni also step up to facilitate internship and job placement for alums? Oh, that's a great question. So yes, absolutely. We actually have alumni job fairs every year towards this spring. I guess unfortunately I think we had a virtual one this year. But we normally have one on campus where prospective employers who are Earlham graduates actually just come to campus if they're looking for people to join their organization. We actually have a buy and hire Earlham group as well. So all of our alums actually have kind of joined this group, and then the recent graduates flood into it, and all of the alums are like, hey, I'm looking for da, 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 da. So it's really cool. When you have like this really distinctive educational experience, I feel as though we connect very well over that. So we do try to, my first job, I was actually hired by an Earlham graduate. And so that is probably fairly indicative. So there's that. And then also we have Earlham Day, which this isn't a counter measure against Ball State, but Ball State's much larger than Earlham. Our alumni base is fervent though. I'm proud to be part of it. So actually Earlham Day actually raised more money than Ball State did. Ball State's fundraising day. Again, that's not a countermeasure against Ball State. That's just like kind of Earlham in a nutshell. But anyways, so yes, alumni are very, very engaged in our current student, in our current studentscape, and particularly as they go on to work internships and find jobs. Our religious classes, Grace asks, are religious classes a requirement to graduate? No, there isn't. So I'll just kind of address the liberal arts here. So Grace, say you are, I'm gonna assign you a major right now, and it's gonna be mine, my old one. Say you're a history major. So that's in the social sciences. So how we approach liberal arts is we want our students to take then 2 classes in each of the other academic divisions. So religion is in the humanities. So you would be required to take 2 classes in the humanities, but it could be English, it could be a foreign language, it could be an ancient classical study. It could be any class within that major division. So, pardon me, there's no religious requirements. We have a meeting house on campus, which is pretty cool because Martin Luther King Jr. came to our meeting house in 1959 to speak to our students, but you're not required to go to any service or, some places will require chapel or service or mass. It's not like that here. Our students go if they'd like to go. Okay, let me keep scrolling. Okay, got a few here from Grace, so I'm just gonna get them rapid fire here. How close are we to an airport? We are 35 minutes from the Dayton International Airport. It is super convenient. That is where most of our students will actually fly into, and then public safety and student life will arrange shuttle transportations from there. It is so easy. Now, Dayton will pretty much take any flight. Sometimes though, you're like, it is way cheaper. Sometimes Dayton's exceedingly affordable to fly into. But you know how airlines work. Sometimes it's cheaper to fly into Cincinnati or Indianapolis or Columbus. Those three airports that I just mentioned are about an hour and a half away. So you could say that we are an hour and a half, no more than an hour and a half away from 4 different airports. But Dayton is the most popular one because it is the closest. Okay, so how is the weather like over the winter? In my humble opinion, Richmond winters are incredibly mild. So I am from Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is directly 90 miles north of Richmond. However, Fort Wayne actually gets over twice the annual snowfall as Richmond does. We get on average, I think 12 to 15 inches. Now some people are like, but I want a pretty harsh winter. I would probably just respond to and say it's the Midwest. So you actually really never know what you're gonna get when you go into winter, what you're gonna get. But winters are typically fairly light here. Now, some students come from Utah or Colorado. They're like, but I love winter. I love to ski. We actually do have some ski slopes, kind of a mini resort, actually just just east of Richmond in New Paris, Ohio. It's about maybe 15 minutes from campus. So, but winters are typically very mild, and students at Earlham this might sound very trite, but students at Earlham actually do get to experience all 4 seasons, and fall is by far the best one. That was just me answering that, I suppose. Okay. Okay, so the question was asked, are SAT and ACT scores required for scholarship eligibility? No, you don't have to submit a test score for either admission or merit-based scholarship. So again, we've come to, it's been realized, that's what I want to say, that there are large groups of students who historically don't test as well, and it's typically due to issues of access. Earlham is very, very intentional about bridging the access gap. So first generation college students of color historically don't test as well. And so those comprise 2 massive student constituencies on our campus. So we've done away with the test score. It's not required for scholarship eligibility. Okay, what do students do for fun? Another great question. You all are on a roll. Hopefully I get through all these questions. I'm gonna pick up the pace here. So our students routinely leave campus. We have a couple really neat spots near campus. One is the Depot District, which is kind of the cultural hub of Richmond, but we also have a farmer's market, which actually there is an Earlham, we have a farm on our campus, and the Miller Farm actually has a booth, a tent at the farmer's market. So Saturday mornings, you'll find tons of Earlham students at the farmer's market, and some actually facilitating a stand. So there are plenty of things to do. And as I mentioned, we do have lots of recreational spaces. We have the Cardinal Greenway, which if you want to go to Muncie, Indiana, which is where Ball State is, the aforementioned Ball State, you can jump on the Greenway and bike or walk all the way there. We have an environmental center in town. We have an arboretum in town. And if you're looking just for a shopping mall, we also have that. So lots of things for our students to do. So do we have an Earlham specific LinkedIn? Yes, actually. So we utilize Handshake, which is kind of like LinkedIn, kind of like Help Wanted. I'm not sure like what the Help Wanted websites are, but you can absolutely link up with Earlham alums by way of Handshake, which is an employment platform. And it's actually how our students find internships and campus jobs. So once you're in Handshake, it is immensely helpful for our students, whether they are current students all the way to graduating and beyond. Is it difficult for students to be able to participate in fall, spring semester travel programs? Are they impacted? Great question, Lori. So traditionally, no. In fact, we try to make it as simple as we can. So we're trying to navigate, like most folks right now, in a current / post-COVID world, depending on how you view all this. So I think all of our students are grounded right now. We have about 500 students on campus doing on-campus learning. And we have a couple hundred who are doing online learning, a few hundred who are doing online learning. So as it stands right now, I think our obviously our programs are grounded, but once we get back going, it's exceedingly simple. Okay. Oh gosh, I might not get to all of these. Food options. So we have our dining hall, which is called Sodexo. We call it Saga, pardon me, which is our food provider before Sodexo. It's just the name is stuck. We call it Saga. So there's a salad bar, there's pizza and pasta bar, there's a main plate, whatever the entree is for the day. We have a vegetarian, vegan option as far as the section of our dining hall, as well as kind of the comfort food side, the deli and the burgers and the fries. We also have Cafe 1847, which has 4 different mini restaurants in it, as well as no fewer than 4 coffee bars across campus. So our students have tons of food options, as I mentioned. And yeah, and again, tends to be pretty customizable to the students. They're always taking feedback from our students as far as what they like to eat or what they want to see served. And yeah, okay, I think that was a sprint, but I think I almost made it through. There was a couple that I didn't get to. Is there any way that I could possibly get everyone? Okay.
Yeah, so Alex will receive all of the questions after today. So if he didn't get to your question, he will get to them via email as well. Thank you so much. There were great questions that were submitted, Alex. This was great Earlham information, very much appreciated. Students and counselors, thank you so much for joining us. As you close this box, a very quick survey will appear. We do ask for your feedback on today's session, and we encourage you to check out the rest of the Colleges That Change Lives programming that is running through Tuesday evening. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.